Okay, my beloved brand, we are back with Marc Mero. We're going to finish up the interview beginning with his WWE years to the end. We're going to now get to see the youthful Mr. Mero and Marc. Hello.
Hey Vince, how you
Look,
doing?
bro, we got marvelous Marc right there in the back.
Yes, Vince, you know what? I don't even know if you even know this, but one of the things that I do also is I do a little magic. And for you and your listeners, what I want to do is I want to show you a quick magic trick, okay?
Let's do it.
And what I'm going to do, you see the pictures behind me?
Yes, I do.
Okay, those pictures are well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to use this picture right here. This one's going to disappear, okay?
Okay,
Watch out this way. Are you looking right at it? Make
let's
sure you
do it.
look at it, okay?
Yep,
See it, right? Okay,
yep.
check this out. Bam! See
That's
that, Vince?
amazing, bro.
You
Look at
couldn't
it.
even see the
Disappeared.
picture.
Amazing, bro. Amazing.
It completely disappeared.
Amazing. Now, Marc, you got to listen. Before we get going on this, I'm going to come clean about to you about some things. You got to give
Yes.
me your word. After all these years, you ain't going to get hot at me over nothing.
No, no,
Okay,
no.
thank God. Okay, all right.
You know, Vince, that's like a beautiful thing in life. I think you get to a place in life where you're content with who you are. You don't
Right.
really get mad about a lot of other things. You know what I
Uh,
mean? You learn that we all got things that are messed up. You know?
Bro, I tell this to everybody, especially, Marc, I'm with the internet a lot because of this website. And, bro, all the negative, life's too short already. Stop it already with the negativity. I can't stand it. But
Thank you, Vince. I
I'm
feel
gonna.
the same way. So if there's something that a listener or you or someone has to ask me about something, I have no problems with things. I think you come to Vince. I think the beautiful thing is not that. The good thing about my life is I've forgiven everybody and everything, but the most important thing is I've learned to forgive myself.
Yeah.
And that's what's important is many people go through their life feeling bitter or resentment and they never got over. We all have a past. You either run from it or you grow from it. And I chose to grow from it.
I'm not there yet, Marc. I'm trying. It's something I really, really have to work at every single day. I feel more and more at peace as time goes on, but I'm not there. I'll be honest with you. But, it is something that I work on every single day.
And that's beautiful, Vince. And you know what? For some people, it takes years and years to finally get to that place. And I think through my faith, there's an old saying that fear builds mountains, but faith removes them. And I had to come to a place in my life where I just had to have the faith that I'm not going to worry about a lot of things that used to bother me. And you start that with forgiving people. And of course, the most important person I needed to forgive was myself.
Yeah. Well, Marc. So now you go to WWE. Now I remember. I remember that one of the first guaranteed contracts. I remember at that time I was right on the cusp of the creative team. I wasn't in yet, but I remember, Bruce Pritchard asking me about you, and I remembered you being on my show in 1991, and I said, "Yeah, bro, I put it over like $1 million. This is a great individual, a great human being," and I was so happy to hear that you were coming aboard at WWE. And here's where I'm going to come a little clean, and then I'm going to come clean with the story later on. So,
Good.
Marc, I remember. Okay, we signed Marc Mero, and this was coming from Pritchard now, and we brought in his wife with him. His wife's, she may be a valet. We're not sure exactly what we were going to do. But I mean, at the time, bro, Rena Mero wasn't, and oh, by the way. So my first question to you is this. Rena had never been on TV before. You had been married at this time, I think, for about 2 years. So when you now come and you meet with Vince, nobody's ever seen Rena Mero before. We don't know who Rena is. How does that meeting come about and that conversation with Vince come about that Rena is now for the first time going to be on television eventually alongside her husband?
That is a great question, Vince. And the truth of the matter is that before I ever flew to New York to sign my contract, Vince and I already had negotiated the contract back and forth with attorneys and everything, and I was getting one of the first guaranteed contracts ever in WWE. And part of the contract that I wrote in or had my attorney write in is that my wife flies everywhere I fly. It was the craziest contract because Vince even said, he goes, "Your wife comes everywhere with you. He goes, that's a very unusual request. I go, and I told him, I said, Vince, I have watched so many people go through divorces in this business. I want my marriage to last. I want my wife everywhere I go. And you know what, Vince, if you were smart, you'd maybe use her as my valet. And he goes, well, Mark, let's just worry about you right now. So he sends me my ticket to fly to New York to sign my contract. And to meet everybody in creative and everything. And so he sends me a ticket. Now there's only one ticket. So I call him up. I said, Vince, there's only one ticket here. Where's my wife's ticket? He goes, your wife has to fly with you to New York just to meet the creative team or meet the, go through the whole, looking at the WWE headquarters and sign the contract. And I said, Vince, she flies everywhere I fly. So sure enough, Vince sent me the ticket. We fly to New York, and then as soon as he sees her, he goes, whoa, he goes, we got to put her on TV. And that's how it all started, is her being my valet, never knowing whether she's going to have, stage fright, whether she could be good in front of a camera. She never did anything like this before, but she was a beautiful girl, and we thought it would be an opportunity, for me, that I'm going to be with my wife. I never wanted to get a divorce, and I wanted her to be a part of the show. And that's how Sable was born. So we had to pick out a name. We went through all these different names. We came up with the name Sable, and that's how Sable was born.
Now, Mark, let me ask you this. How was the original, bro, you just came off of this flamboyant, over the top Johnny B. Bad that very few people could have done, bro. Honestly, I mean, you had to be all in for this. Much the way Dustin Rhodes was in with Goldust. You had to be all in with this. You were
not that much.
well, you were tremendous, but now we can't do that anymore because WCW owns that. So how is this new character presented to you at that time?
Well, that's the hardest part, Vince, is Johnny B. Bad was so opposite of me that it was fun to do, and it was easy to do because it was just this outrageous, flamboyant character, so you could just be like a cartoon character, and you could say anything. You come up with all these crazy things. I'll kick your booty with my tutti frutti. I'm so pretty and you're ugly. Oh, hush. I love the rock and roll, strut and stroll. I'm here to drive you out of control because I'm a bad man. So I was really having fun with that. Now, I meet with the creative team that comes up with the different characters and things, and they had these drawings of this character kind of looked like Tarzan. And I said, well, what name will I be? And they go, what do you think of Wild Man Marc Mero? And I thought about it. I'm thinking, okay, but what is it? And then Vince said to me, he goes, can you do like a Tarzan yell? Like, oh, and I said, no, I can't. So he said, well, we got to come up with something like, not like whoa, but it's got to be like a, like Call the Wild. And so I'm thinking about it. I was trying different things. I don't got a real strong voice anyways, Vince, but I got a very raspy voice, so I can't yell loud. And it was really frustrating because the hardest part about coming to WWE is, what is Wild Man Marc Mero? I went from saying I'm a bad man to I'm a wild man. What is that? So it was very difficult to understand the character, and the people never got really behind it because of the fact, who is this guy? Is he from a jungle? What is he? He's got this beautiful girl with him. So it became they were more interested in seeing her than me, even though I learned how to wrestle pretty good at that time. I was going to the WCW had the power plant. So before I came to WWE, I was always going down with Dallas Page and some of the other wrestlers that really helped me out down there. Great guys, Terry Taylor, Scotty Flamingo, just guys that really helped me back then.
Are you saying Scotty Flamingo because we don't want to give Raven the credit? So maybe some people won't know he was Scotty Flamingo.
No, just because I that's the last time I actually wrestled him in TNA as Raven, but no, that's the first name that.
No, I know. I'm just
camp and help us out a lot.
Yeah.
And last time I didn't give him credit, he got mad at me, so I'm going to say this time.
I know.
But anyway, so I became a halfway decent wrestler, and could have some really good matches. And then went to King of the Ring with Stone Cold, had some good matches with him, and. But then, unfortunately, I blew out my knee.
Wait, we get way ahead of ourselves here, Mark. We get way ahead of ourselves. Let's back up.
Okay.
Now, first of all, Vince ain't a hard guy to figure out, and I can definitely see him looking at you, and in Vince's mind, this guy looks like Tarzan. You always had the nice tan mark, and your hair was a little so like that's so easy for me to understand. But Mark, here's where I gotta come a little clean with you, okay? And this is why I think the Wild Man thing worked, and I don't think it's why Vince originally looked at the Wild Man for this. So, Mark, for the first time, here you come. I'm thrilled to see you with the WWE, right? Bro, they introduced me to this Rena Mero. Okay? Now, Mark, you got to understand something. I had worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of girls, women in the industry before, okay? Mark, I look at Rena, bro, from first glance, I'm absolutely smitten. I'll admit it, bro. I've said this a million times. I have no problem saying this if I'm going to be honest. And you know what it was, Mark? Here's the thing, bro. I'll tell you what it was. And this is why I think the Wild Man thing worked, but I like the second gimmick better. Here's what it was, Mark. Listen, I'm the kind of guy, Mark, that bro, there's voluptuous looking women in wrestling and, the bodies they have and this, that, and the other thing. Bro, there's a million of them, okay? The thing about Rena, bro, was I remember her eyes, bro. She had these freaking green exotic eyes. When you looked in her eyes, you were mesmerized by her. And I think that's why the Wild Man thing worked, because she did come across, you had the tan, you had the whole gimmick. She did come across as very, very exotic. And that's why I think at the beginning, that picture worked. Now, you doing a Tarzan Yell and all this stuff. I mean, it's only going to go so far. But when you saw the picture of the two of you at the beginning, I think it worked.
Well, Vince, it was just very difficult at first because I went from going from Johnny B. Bad, who was really kind of well known and flamboyant and fun. My entrance was usually longer than my matches, because it was just like a party going to the ring. But when we did the Wild Man and Sable character, it started out really well, and we wanted to keep it. I remember she first came out in kind of like a really sexy bodysuit type thing, and of course our conviction was, man, we got to make this kind of classy, and that's when we went. And I don't know if you remember, we went to the evening gown stuff, and I think when we went to the evening gown stuff is when it really started, where people like. They wanted, this was the beginning of the Attitude Era. This is the beginning of getting a little crazy with wrestling, with everything, the sex, drugs, rock and roll, everything, man. And they wanted to bring back kind of some sexier outfits, and that's when we went back to the kind of the skin tight leopard print stuff that she would wear, and it was a little hard because again, we had a young daughter. We are now both on the road. We got a nanny taking care of our daughter. We got everybody, family members working for us and doing different things and running errands. And it just became it was crazy, Vince. It was being on the road with your wife. It's hard enough being the first guy getting the guaranteed contract. And now having your wife on the road, you don't really build a bond with a lot of the wrestlers because you're always with your wife. You travel with your wife, just you and her. You have a room with her. You don't hang out with a lot of the guys. And it became very difficult because it wasn't like WCW where I got to bond with guys and have fun with them. And, you kind of hang out with them. You go out. You do a lot of crazy stuff. But I'm a married man now, and I really wanted to be responsible because I've already been through the drugs, the sex, drugs, rock and roll at WCW and doing crazy stuff there. So I really
Mark,
wanted to keep my life straight.
This. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to ask you this. Mark, yeah. I wasn't saved at that time. I didn't become saved till, years later in 2004, okay? But Mark, I know this, bro. When I became saved, right, I was working for TNA at the time, and a couple of things happened. First of all, once I became saved, like, I knew what the wrestling business represented. But once I became saved, bro, my eyes were like now wide open. Everything that consisted of the wrestling business was magnified 100 times over. At the time, Mark, Jeff wanted me to be a heel. He wanted me to do something with Dusty, and Dusty was the baby face, and I was the heel. And Mark, as ridiculous as this sound, I was a vicious heel in WCW before this, with my language and, shooting people the bird, and I didn't care what I said about what. Bro, once I became saved and Jeff wanted me to be that same guy, Mark, I'm telling you, I couldn't do it. And it has nothing to do with, okay, these are my convictions now. Here's where I draw the line. I I physically could not go out there and be that guy anymore. I couldn't do it. And I had to tell Jeff, bro, I can't, it's not in me anymore. I can't be that guy anymore. I'm sorry. So like, Mark, with some of the things at that time, and we're going to get into a couple of them, man, it must have been, absolute spiritual warfare, for you to go through that time. But Mark, I have to ask you, when you were going through these things, like, let's take for a couple of instances, first and foremost, bro, Rena in the bikini contest.
Yeah.
Bro, I have to tell you about this. Can I sidetrack with the bikini contest thing?
Sure.
I'll never forget you doing this, bro. And I give you, you know why, like, I like this story because it showed me how much you trusted me, right? Bro, I'll never forget this as long as I live. You tell me Rena wants to show you a bikini for the night, a bikini in the night, bikini. You bring me in the dressing room, right, bro? Just the three of us were there. She shows me her bikini for the night, bro. I almost died of a heart attack on the spot. But my question is to you, Mark, and then, bro, almost as bad. We went to the marvelous Mark character and almost, bro, the mental abuse of Sable and, the reindeer outfit and all that stuff. That was great TV. I have to ask you this, Mark. I know that stuff was difficult for you to do because of your convictions, but once you made the decision to do it, and once you're like, okay, we're going to do this, were you able to just go out there 100% and do it? Or was it really still difficult from show to show to show to do some of the stuff that we had written for you?
Vince, it was like a freight train that just took off. I mean, it's like you're on this train and you're stopping at every stop. But once that freight train started going, man, it was just busting through the barriers. It would not stop. And it became easier and easier to just go along with things. And as you remember, when here I am, this supposedly Christian man, even when I won the belt I dedicated to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I remember just feeling so lost at that time, so embarrassed, so I didn't even care what people thought about me at that point. At that point, it was like, whatever. And then, of course, when Playboy came knocking, that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, and Mark, let's talk about that because you and I have spoken about that for a couple of times. First of all, Mark, again, I got to back you up because there's some stuff that like you kind of skim over that I don't want to skim over because I think it's a big deal. Because I was there, and this kind of paints the picture of, of the man and the human being you were back then and you still are today. So I don't want to skim over anything. Mark, so you become the Intercontinental Champion. You're having a good run. You're on every TV show. You're a part of the Attitude Era, with Rena. You're successful. I think you blew out your knee, correct?
Yes.
Okay. There's a certain period of time there now, Mark, where you can't work. Okay. Now,
yeah,
Mark,
8 months.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mark.
It was 8 months that after reconstructive surgery on my knee, I was out for 8 months. So it was in that time off that Rena became a big star. They're using it for advertisement, for shirts, and going out there and getting involved in different things. And she became a big star with the Attitude Era.
Well, Mark, let me ask you this first. I want to ask you this question. I know, bro, part of my duties when you got hurt, and Mark, I can't remember if this came from you. I think it came from you or it came from the office, but part of my duties were because I had such a good relationship with you and her, like, my duties more or less were to kind of keep an eye on her on the road. By that I mean make sure she got to a hotel safe, all that kind of stuff. Not that Rena was going to do anything, but bro, we know how wrestlers are, and now she's out on the road on her own, and Mark isn't there. Mark, I got to ask you this question now. The fact that, part of your deal originally was that Rena goes everywhere I go. Once you got hurt, did you want to continue to go on the road every week and be with her? Was that an issue with Vince? What happens at that point?
Well, physically, I couldn't, Vince. After reconstructive surgery, the last thing I want to do is get on planes and travel all over the place. I wanted to rehab my knee, and it was great being home with our daughter. So we made the choice and Rita was becoming a star, and the last thing I wanted to do was take that away from her at that point when she had the opportunity to really, take that character to another level, in which she did.
Yeah, Mark, I'll never forget, and I'll tell you how it started. I remember you were hurt, Mark, and I don't even know if I've ever had this discussion with you, right? It was early on, Mark, after you just had gotten hurt, and I remember Rena came out, and bro, I think she was promoting a big inflatable like WWE chair. We had nothing for her to do at the time because you weren't there. So she comes out, putting over this inflatable WWE chair. I remember being in the building, Mark, and she got the second biggest pop in the building that night behind Austin. And then I remember getting with Vince saying, listen, bro, we have to do something with her. You can't listen to those people. You can't deny it. Then I remember, Mark, making the phone call to her, and I talked to both of you, and the idea of, listen, what if we can put the women's title on Sable? This way she can go out and represent the WWE as the women's champion and open some of the doors that guys can't. Now, Mark, I have to be honest with you, okay? With all the guys I've dealt with in the business, I would say that 95 of them would have probably said, absolutely not. 95 of them would have probably said, listen, I'm home with a blown out knee. Guess what? My wife's going to be home with me as well because, Mark, you know the nature of the beast. You know how the boys are. Now she's out there, alone. These things have to be running through your mind as a man and a husband. There's no question about that. But yet, not only do you give her the blessing, and does she go out there, but you train her. She comes out there the first night, never wrestled before in her life, and totally blows everything out of the water. Now, I want to ask you two questions about this, Mark. Question number one, as a husband, and okay, my wife's now out there among the wolves, and I'm not out there with her. Was there ever the selfish impulse of, you know what, I'm home, she's going to be home because I know she's going to be safe that way. So first and foremost, did that thought ever cross your mind, or was it, you know what, this is the opportunity my wife has to shine. I know she can do it. I'm going to be behind her 100%. I would just love to know what the mindset was at that time.
Well, Vince, I was so proud of her, and I knew that's what she wanted more than anything. And not only that, we had a good marriage. We had trust and faith, and we really believed that it was something that was going to really benefit us in the long run. Where we could retire and do real well. So I had no problem with it. I was really rooting her on and watching her on TV. And as soon as she got off, she would call me and we would talk about it. So it was a really cool time, and then watching how, gosh, the momentum she started having with the Sable character was just incredible. And then, of course, when I came back, it was the decision. Now we're going to do the flip flop where I'm going to be this jealous, insecure, crazy husband.
Well, but here's a thing, Mark. And Mark, listen, I feel like, I'm talking about Rena a lot in this interview, but the only reason I am is because of the reflection on you. You weren't doing what the I don't even want to say typical wrestler, bro, because wrestlers have a crazy mentality. You aren't doing what the typical man would have done. Now, Mark, you come back, okay? She's over huge. Mark, I know the wrestling business. I know what was going on in the locker room. There were a lot of guys, bro, that were really jealous of how over she got and as quickly as she got over. Now she's on television every week. Bro, you can argue and say she's the female version of Stone Cold Steve Austin. So now here's Rena, probably doesn't realize any of this is going on. She's got all of this heat on herself that she never asked for. You come back on the scene now. You know what's going on, bro. You're smart to the business. You can see what's going on. So now it's like, bro, I've got the boys on one side, that are jealous of her and that think a woman shouldn't be in that spot, which is ridiculous. And here I got my wife that I'm going to support and I'm going to stand behind 100%. Mark, am I wrong, or was that a terrible spot for you to be in?
It was a terrible spot, Vince. It's like the boys hate you. Your wife's getting over huge. But I was so happy for her, and we were both just ecstatic about how everything was going. So I realized that now I'm sacrificing my career. But remember something, Vince? They're backing the Brinks truck up to our house now. I'm still getting my guaranteed salary. I'm getting, I think it was like 350 to 400,000 a year at the time, and so we're both making really good money, and we know we're only going to do this for a couple more years, and so we let this runaway train keep going.
Now, Mark, we get to the part. This is a runaway train, and she's becoming huge. You still have, your Christian base that you're still trying to stay true to. But like you said, bro, the Brinks truck's coming in the back door. We're all human, bro. That's the mistakes we make. Now Playboy comes knocking on the door. Now, with all the things that, you had done on TV, the bikini contest and, even, being verbally abusive to her and like all that stuff, this now takes it to a whole different level. And we've spoken about this, a little bit briefly, but Mark, where are you at this point? Because again, this is just more money on top of more money on top of more money. And Mark, let's face it, let me make this clear to people that don't know at home. Wrestlers have a shelf life. You're not going to make this type of money for the next decade, and you know it. And Marc Mero at this point is a little, bro, what are you, 38, 40 at this point almost?
It was, about 38 years old.
38 years old, bro. You only got a couple of years. You got, you've got your daughter. You've got her future. Here comes the truck again. But now this is really bringing it to a whole different level. What's the conversation at that point?
Okay, Vince, I think this is the first time I've actually really talked about this, in depth like this. So this is I want to make sure that I say this, and this is coming from my heart, because I'm not being vindictive in any way. And I just want to say what happened was we got a call that Playboy wanted Rena to be in the magazine. So we had the conversation. So after they make this, and I was kind of acting as her manager, talking and discussing it and making the deal, along with Arthur Lieberman, our attorney. So I said to Rena, we sat down and go, Rena, this is what they're offering us. And she was like, oh my gosh. She goes, Mark, this is life changing. I said, I know it is. I go, but it's not the right thing to do. And she was like, I know it's not. And then we sat there and looked at each other, but God will forgive us. And we had this notion like justifying it, saying, he's a forgiving God. He forgives people that go and murder someone. They ask for forgiveness. They're going to be forgiven. So we had this notion that everything's going to be okay. And Vince, we agreed to do Playboy. And next thing you know, we're at the Playboy parties. We're at the mansion. We're with Hugh Hefner. He's like one of the girls hanging out there. And it just became this whirlwind lifestyle, And I'm right along with her. We're going to the Playboy Mansion Halloween parties, the Midsummer Night Dream parties, and we're right in there with all these movie stars and celebrities and making buku bucks. And all of a sudden, the Playboy sells one of the fastest selling issues in Playboy history. We make a ton of money on the issues over their normal sales. And now they come back with the largest offer Playboy has ever offered a woman at that time. And now we're at the runaway train. And Vince, small things started happening. Rena's on the road now, sometimes without me, and we're arguing more, and you see this, like, our lives spinning out of control. Our daughter's having trouble at school because now boys are coming up to her and going, "Why don't you look like your mommy?" and hold up pictures of Playboy. It was really hurtful. We were just spinning out of control. And then, so next thing you know, we had the big lawsuit with the WWE for sexual harassment. And I don't think I can even talk about that, but there was a settlement that we ended up getting through that. And she left wrestling, I left wrestling, but I walked away with 3 years left on my $350,000 guaranteed contract.
Mark, let me stop you right there. Because I want to backtrack, because we went over a couple of key notes, and I want to go back, because again, Mark, this is the Christianity comes into play, and I really want to ask you questions about this. Reason being, there are a lot of people out there. You know what, bro? It may not be decisions this big. Let's face it. This is a huge decision, but people have decisions every day in their life, bro, where they're at a crossroad, and they make a decision. It's going to go one way or another. Mark, I got to ask you this: while you and Rena are basically sitting there, and you're so much money, bro, you can't. I don't, Mark. I don't even know where you begin to say no. I don't know how you say no. Life changing money. You've got a daughter. It's all understandable. But when you and Rena are sitting there, Mark, and you have this conversation, you're like, "God will forgive us, God will forgive us, God will forgive us." Mark, in the back of your mind, speaking for you, in the back of your mind, do you know full well something bad is going to come out of this? Or are you really convinced, I'm doing something wrong, I'm doing something that's against what I believe in, I know I'm doing it, but he'll forgive us? Do you really believe that, or do you really think something bad is going to come out of this?
Vince, I absolutely knew we were doing something wrong, but kept hoping in my heart that we're going to get through this and that God will forgive us and we'll live a normal life and grow old together. That was really what I was thinking, but I knew it was wrong. I knew it was sin. I knew it was even going to the Playboy Mansion, I used to feel like this is like evil. Seeing some of the things that were happening and being a part of that. You knew it was wrong. It was just so lustful and promiscuous and wrong. But
Mark,
it's crazy. But Vince, the Bible says that, a lot of people say that, well, money is the root of all evil, but actually the wording in the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. And it's absolutely true. It was the love of money for Rena and I that destroyed our relationship.
And Mark, you know what I think is the lesson in this? And Mark, I've had the lesson taught to me a million times, but I think what the lesson is, and this is why I'm dwelling on it, because I think it's important, okay? Because you have people, there are a lot of people in this world, Mark, that do believe in God and that do believe that Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior. They do believe that, but they also believe this, Mark, that they can continue to do things that they know are wrong. Why? Because he's a forgiving God. So no matter what we do, we know, well, I'm going to drink tonight and I may go home, driving drunk, but God will forgive me. I'm going to verbally abuse my wife. I know that's wrong, but tomorrow I'll ask for forgiveness and God's going to forgive me. At the end of the day, Mark, I think it's exactly what you said. A lot of people live that kind of life, which I don't agree with. Listen, we mess up, we screw up, we mess up, we screw up, period. It's going to happen because we're human. But when people continue to do this under the umbrella of God's a forgiving God, it's like you said earlier in the interview, Mark, that sooner or later, there's going to be consequences.
Yeah, and that's what I said, Vince, and I'll say it again. When you get to a place in your life because of sin and you say, how did I get here? It's called consequences. And I experienced some of the most devastating consequences that anyone could ever go through. And it was so hard going through this. But I look back at my life and I just thank God that we do serve a forgiving God, but at the expense of me not being here, my own death. I lost my little brother and sister. They both died at 21. My mother died at 58. My dad died while I was holding him in my arms. I lost so much, and then my wife leaving me. It was just so devastating, and so I remember just not even wanting to be here anymore, and not even caring, Vince. Just getting to a place in my life where I didn't care, and all that light and joy I had in my life was all gone. Of anything, any of the minimal accomplishments I had, I just looked at myself like the biggest jerk. What did I do to myself, to my wife, to my family? Well, when I say do it, I allowed it all to happen. It could have been stopped or at a time, but once that freight train got running, Vince, it was a runaway train.
And it was the same for me, Mark, on a much different level. So trust me, as somebody that was there, I totally understand it. Mark, you and Rena, the lawsuit. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to get you into any kind of trouble. I just want to talk about, when you guys left and where you went from there. Mark, now I know you're able to forgive a lot of things. Okay, you're a very forgiving man. But I think there's one incident that I hate to bring up that I don't know if you've been able to forgive for this yet. Are you ready?
Yes, Vince, but I know I'm not sure what you're going to ask me, but the thing is, well, no, I know you're going to ask me, but I got to tell you something. That's why it's such a great place to be in my life, is because
Right.
I have forgiven everybody and
Right.
everything, and
I
that's the
don't
only
think you.
reason I can have the joy. But see, that's the cool thing is. How can God forgive us if we don't forgive other people?
That's
But
it.
all the joy that I lost, all the people I lost in my life, God has given it all back. New friends, new family, a new marriage, the most incredible woman I could ever imagine being so blessed to even know, and now married to her. So, but anyways, go ahead
Okay,
and
I'm going to
ask the question.
rephrase the question, and I'm going to say, bro, somewhere in the back of Marc Mero's craw, this thing still sticks. Do you know what I'm going to say?
I probably has something to do with my ex-wife leaving me.
No, no,
No,
bigger than
okay.
that, Mark. Bigger than
Where's
that.
that?
That's no bigger than that, Mark.
Okay.
Bro, you got absolutely robbed in the brawl for all. And those
Oh,
three judges, bro, those three
oh,
judges that robbed you. Come on, Mark. Come
are
on.
you
I
kidding me?
was there, bro. Listen, I got to
That's
don't
what you
say
thought
don't
I'd be
say anything
upset
yet.
about?
Listen, don't say
Here's
anything
a
yet.
here's the problem with that. Okay, here's a at the time 38 or 39-year-old guy trying to put on boxing gloves where I never even knew how to wrestle properly, right? But the funny thing was is that Bradshaw, who I think does an amazing job. I got to tell you something, as much as me and him didn't get along, he does an amazing job on SmackDown. I mean, to say to a guy that has taken his career when he was Justin Bradshaw swinging around a cowbell to becoming a world champion and becoming a really good announcer and doing such amazing job with that, man, I commend that guy. I mean, that's what I talk to kids about, dreaming big, and that guy is he dreamt big and went after his goals and dreams and really did some amazing things. But he was when he didn't, I knew he didn't like me, so when I would wrestle him in shows, I mean, that guy when he powered bombed me, he would want to put me through the concrete floor, not just the ring, the concrete floor. And I remember, I couldn't remember. I just felt like my organs were coming out of my body. He would slam me so hard. So when Steve Blackman, who actually beat me in the brawl for all, uh, he injured himself in training. They brought me back in. They said, "Well, you got to fight Justin Bradshaw or Bradshaw," and I was like, I would love to fight that guy. What do I got to lose? He's a foot taller than me. He's 100 pounds more than me. What do I got to lose, man? So I was really excited about it, and he actually called me on the phone and asked me if I would just pass it to someone else because he just didn't, he didn't think it was necessary. I already lost. And I said, no, I want to fight you. So he knew I was really looking forward to fighting him. And I had no fear of the guy. I knew he couldn't really hurt me. I mean, I could really, in my mind, I was in boxing match with 12-ounce gloves. And now we got these big gloves on. Who can get hurt? But then I'm watching guys get really hurt. So, but I never got hurt in any of those matches, even though Steve Blackman beat me very easily, but he was just taking me down, but never really hurt me, though. Never really punched me or anything. And now I'm wrestling Bradshaw, who I know if he gets a hold of me, he's going to, be able to slam me probably, But it was a very close fight, and then it went to a draw. And next thing you know, it was the unprecedented where they said, put the gloves back on. we're doing one more round, And then we went out there and finished the last round. They gave him the decision. But no, I've never been bitter about that. I at the time I did think I won it, but the blessing I guess I could look at is that I would eventually have to get knocked out by Butterbean. I don't know.
Hey, Mark, can I refresh your memory a little bit?
Sure.
Bro, after that fight, that was the hottest I ever saw you, bro. Hottest. And hey, Mark, can I tell you why I was hot? Can I tell you why I was just as hot? You might not even know this, Mark. Mark, do you know how the Brawl for All started?
No, I don't. I have no idea.
You'll love this, bro. Me, JBL, and Kevin Kelly are having a conversation. Now, bro, listen, I'm not going to be as nice to Bradshaw as you are. Bradshaw's a bully, bro. He's always been a bully. He takes great pride in being a bully. So, bro, it was one of those bully conversations where he's there with me and Kevin Kelly. And, bro, he makes the comment to me that, you know what? If this were real, and I had to fight any of these guys in a bar fight, I could take every single person on the roster. And, bro, as soon as he said that to me, the light bulb went off. Oh, really? Really? So that's why. So now, bro, I get him in there with my boy, Marc Mero, who's a professional boxer. I mean, it was tailor-made, bro. I mean, this was the...
So you're responsible for taking out half the roster in the WWE back then.
Yeah, but I also do remember, bro, Bart Gunn making JBL's eyes roll in the back of his head.
Yeah, he could punch that guy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, bro, I never in a million years, the Godfather's eyes rolled in. I never thought I ever see anybody get hit that hard in my life.
Yeah, he could punch, but then it just goes to show how different it is. Then what Butterbean did to him was what he was doing to everybody else. It goes to show the level of a Butterbean and how hard that guy could punch compared to a Bart Gunn,
Exactly. So, Mark, let's pick it up now. So now there's a sexual harassment lawsuit. Now, I don't want to get into that. You came to an agreement with the WWE. You part and go your separate ways. Now, Mark, there's a time in there where, you're still working a little bit. I know you had a little, you were at WCW. You did something with Ray, but not on a long-term basis. Then you went to, I believe it was just for a cup of coffee. They weren't around for a long time. The X Wrestling Federation, and you
XWF,
and you actually went there with Rena, correct?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Mark, I got to ask you this, and if it's none of my business, tell me it's none of my business. But I have to ask the question.
You've gone this far, Vince. We can't stop now.
Mark, I'm the Oprah of the wrestling community. I got to ask you these questions. Mark, with everything that happened, okay, I would have to believe this, the Playboy, the sexual harassment, everything that happened. By the time we get to this point, I don't want to say is the marriage in trouble. I don't want to say that, but is the relationship with Rena, let's put it this way, not the same as it was when the two of you went to Vince's office that first day and signed at the dotted line. I mean, you two had gone through a lot together at the WWE, and you survived it, bro. A lot of people wouldn't have even survived that. You survived that, but did it take a toll on the relationship?
Well, Yes, Vince, it did. First of all, we weren't even going to church at this time anymore. We weren't praying together. We weren't serving Christ. And we were arguing more. And our daughter was having trouble in school and she was acting out. And it was just, like I said, it was spinning out of control. And we were just so unhappy. And that's when we decided to go to LA and get an apartment for a year. And she was going to get into acting. And I wanted to support her in that. So we got her a place in Los Angeles, and I would stay home with Mariah, and so Mariah could finish out school while Rena was in L.A. And she got a couple, parts in some movies, Corky Romano, and a couple small parts in different things, but never really got to the level that we were hoping she would go to. And so next thing I know, she said to me that she goes, "I want to go back to wrestling." And I thought, I mean, it was like getting hit with a left hook. I go, what? Are you crazy? Not only, 'cause I was actually fearful for her going back into that atmosphere after, having a lawsuit against them, after saying all the things that we said about the wrestling industry. Oh my gosh, I was really fearful for her. And I said, I don't think that's a good idea. They would never have you back. Vince will never even talk to you. And little did I know that she already had spoken to Vince and talked to him. And I was dumbfounded that Vince would even consider taking her back. And there were some stipulations she had to go back and apologize to, like, I think it was Undertaker and Triple H and some of the main guys at the time. But supported her, supported her going back. And I was going to be a stay-at-home dad. And we would have, like, Monday Night Raw parties at the house, and all our friends would come over and we watch her on TV. And then
Mark,
the
let me just stop you right there. I got to ask you a
okay.
question now. Okay, so Mark, listen. I never badmouth Rena. I never would,
And
but
I never have either. I think she's
yeah.
that's the thing, is that I'm so happy for her in her
I
life.
am too, but bro, I gotta tell you, it sticks in my craw a little bit. Here's this guy supporting. She breaks the news to you after she's already had a conversation. I think that's wrong. That's me. But Mark, is there any discussion about maybe you going back with her, or were you like, listen, as much as I'm scared to death of her going back there, I absolutely positively am not going back.
No, at this point, Vince, I'm now 40 years old. I've had 9 surgeries at this time.
Wow.
Reconstruction of my knee, my elbows, my shoulders. I was a mess, and I was in no condition to go back to wrestling at that time. A couple of years later, I did go back to TNA for a little bit, but at that time, I was just not prepared to go back. So we made the decision to stay home. I would stay home and just be Mariah's dad and help her with the school and all that. And Rena would go back and become Sable again. And that's when obviously our marriage fell apart, and she met Brock, and they eventually got married and have kids together, but that was the end of it.
Morg, I just have to tell you, bro, I'm sounding like a broken record over here, but my God, bro, for a guy to support his wife that way, and bro, listen, it's nothing against Rena, because I lived in that world. You lived in that world. You knew what she was going back to, without you. You knew, but that's what she wanted to do, and you supported her. Man, Mark, I got to ask you this question, because to me, that's a man. I mean, that really is a man. My wife wants to do this. Not only am I going to support her, listen, Mark, you were married for a while, but at the end of the day, you were still home with Rena's daughter. You were watching
Right.
Rena's
Vince,
daughter.
in life, you like, if someone has a dream or a goal, the last thing I would ever want to do was take away that, or never give them the opportunity to be fulfilled in their own life. And so I wanted Rena to go back and do everything she wanted to do in the wrestling industry. I think she missed the limelight. I mean, obviously that's the thing. We had enough money to live the rest of our lives on, but she missed the limelight, and she went back, and I don't think she was truly ever really happy with the wrestling industry. But she went back, and that was the end of our marriage.
And you don't regret the decision whatsoever, I take it.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, gosh, like I said, all the paths I've taken in my life led me to where I am right now. I've never had the joy or never would have known what like going to schools and churches and corporations all over the country, all over the world. We went to Russia and spoke out there, and of course, meeting my wife and her family is now my family. Her 90-year-old mother's been living with us ever since we got married, and she's the most incredible woman in the world. So I've got a new mother, got a new family. I have it all, Vince, and I never would have known that if it wasn't for my marriage falling apart. And I don't mean to sound like I want marriages to fall apart, but you got to pick yourself up when you get knocked down in life, and that was the most devastating thing that ever happened to me, and other than losing my family through death. But it was making this amazing comeback from that point on that has taken me now into a place in life where I finally found number one contentment, but joy and peace, and the relationship I now have with God has never been better. And even looking forward to 2015 of 200 presentations for next year is going to be an incredible year.
Hey, Mark, I have to ask you this, and I'm just curious to get your answer to this of how you think you've escaped this. Because you just made the comment, Rena missed the limelight. Mark, I've said this a million times. You can't explain to anybody who's never been in the wrestling business. You can't explain to them the egos that you're dealing with because you just can't. I've never, ever witnessed egos like that outside here in the real world. Only in wrestling, the egos are tremendous. Mark, how were you able to escape that? Because I know I know you didn't miss the limelight. You don't have to be in the spotlight. I know that's not you, but living in that world, how do you think you escaped that?
Well, Vince, what's funny is that I make a joke about this. Obviously, I'm not in front of big crowds like I was in wrestling, but when we speak at a school, it's from 500 to 2,000 students. And I often make a joke that, I still get to, entertain, but nobody's hit me over the head with a chair anymore. So I walk off that stage and I still feel great. But Vince, at the end of the day, I got a wife. I come home to a wife, a mother-in-law, and three dogs that come up and lick me to death. And I can't ask for anything more than that in my life. So, like I said earlier in the interview, is that when death finds me, it's going to find me living, and it find me in a joyful place in my life, and it all comes from a choice. And happiness is a choice. And a lot of people don't realize that you actually have the opportunity to choose to be happy because it's not so much about your circumstance or your situation, it's how you respond to it. And I chose a whole different way to respond to adverse situations through forgiveness, no bitterness, no resentment, and just live your life. Treat other people with kindness and love. And it all comes back to you. The more you give, the more you get back.
And Mark, I have to say this too, because Mark, I'm coming off. Mark, I say this all the time, and this is the part that saddens me the most about my run in the wrestling business. Mark, unfortunately, once I was out of the business, and you start reading the internet and you start reading the little negative jabs that people start taking at you right and left, right? And you start, I start learning about all the heat I've had with these people that, number one, I had no idea I had heat with them. Number two, the heat was based on business and they weren't satisfied with their spot, whatever it was. It was never personal. And number three, I worked with these people for years and years and years and years, face to face, dozens of times. All these people that have heat with me today never, ever said anything to my face when they all had the opportunity with. So that's difficult for me. And again, that all goes back to, oh, you were the head of creative, okay? And we were afraid to lose our spot if we told you what we really thought. It's that wrestling BS. Pardon my French. Bro, I bow down to you
Oh,
because
Vince.
there are so many people, Mark, that will, bro, listen, everybody, you could be 40, 50, 60. Bro, they're all waiting for that phone call from Vince McMahon. Every single one of them. So what they know and the knowledge they have and how they really feel and the things they could say to help the wrestling business in general, help everybody in it, help the newcomers coming up, make it a better place. The knowledge they can share and the experience they can share, where collectively they could make the business a better place. Nobody says anything because I'm waiting for Vince to call, which he's never going to do to begin with. But that's besides the point. In 2007, bro, the tragedy with Benoit, and Nancy and his son. Bro, you went out there in 2007 and you were the only one that spoke the truth about the issues in professional wrestling. Look at this tragic situation. This isn't just a wrestler now, dying of an OD in a hotel room at 12 o'clock at night. A wife and an innocent boy. This has to change. You were the only one, bro, who stepped forward to try to make the world better. And here's the blessing, bro. Even though nobody else would, because everybody's waiting for the phone call from Vince, and even though, bro, I think they put the kibosh on the Johnny B. Bad doll that probably cost you millions of dollars. But despite all that, you know what the beauty thing is of this, bro? Bro, look at what this led to. Tell everybody how you took this. Basically, I don't want to say don't do drug campaign because it was a much higher scale than that. But you took this. The wrestlers didn't want to get on board, bro. That they're all waiting for the phone call. But you didn't stop there. You took this message to an audience that would listen, wanted to listen, needed to listen, and respected you more than anything for it. So, Mark, how did we go from CNN, which was now 7 years ago, to basically what you represent and what you're doing today that is changing the world and changing thousands of kids a year around the world?
Vince, there's two types of people. There's people that say something needs to be done, and then there's a person that says, I want to go out and do something. I think I got so sick of always feeling like, why don't they do something about this? Or why don't they do something about that? And I felt like I had a voice. And after I read that the CNN article about Chris Benoit killing his wife, Nancy, and their son, Daniel, and I said, I want to go out there and do something. And my first time ever speaking was to a school called Melbourne High School. They let me speak to 60 of their football players. And it really was about, not doing steroids and drugs, but it evolved into this amazing passion for helping young people through their adolescent years of anti-bullying message, suicide prevention, goal setting, substance abuse, and it's just taken off to over 1,000 schools, churches, and corporations around the country. And it all started from that day that Chris killed his wife and his kid, where I wanted to be a guy that said, I want to do something about this. Vince, we all going to leave a legacy. Whether we like it or not, we're going to leave a legacy. My legacy is not going to matter if they got a building or a street named after me. My legacy is going to be the difference I made in somebody else's life. And that's what I hope my legacy will be when Marc Mero is gone.
Hey, Mark, I want to talk about this one other story, too. And you say you'll talk about anything. I've asked you everything already. I've proven I'm the Oprah of the talk show circuit here in professional wrestling. Okay, Mark, I was really taken back. You shared your memoirs with me, which I was thrilled to death to read because I care about you so much, and I think you are a role model to so many people. But bro, the opening of the book, when you talk about yourself, is very, very heavy, and I would have never thought in a million years. The positivity of this man and the light that's shown around this man in a very dark world, I would have never thought that you yourself, would have gotten to this place. I got to ask you two things, and I'm asking you two things because I know you're going to help many people listening to this. And bro, I talk about my depression all the time, and it's nothing that I'm, it's nothing that I'm happy about or proud of. I talk about it because I know there are so many people out there dealing with it. But I have to ask you two questions when it came to that moment in time. Number one, what was it that really drove you to that? And number two, more importantly, what was it that really took you out of that and made it possible for you to change thousands and thousands of lives years after, when the fact of the matter is Marc Mero might have never even been around to do that?
Yeah, Vince, two great questions. First of all, to answer the first question, after it was, I believe it was Christmas 2002. Ree and I were experiencing a lot of difficulty in our marriage. And I remember that I went and spent Christmas Day. I drove to Cocoa Beach, Florida. I sat under a pier and just watched the waves roll in and roll out. And I remember just feeling so broken. My body was a mess at this time. I looked terrible. I gained weight. And my marriage was starting to fall apart. And I remember just thinking, I already lost my little brother and sister, who I told you they died at 21. My mother died at 58. And my dad died. My mother and brother, they died 2 weeks apart. And my dad died recently, and it was Christmas. And I remember just sitting on this pier in Cocoa Beach, Florida, thinking, how did I get here? Man, I was rich, I was famous. Look at me. What happened to my life? And it wasn't long after that Rena finally left. It was now 2003, which is only a couple months later from Christmas to 2003 when she left. And after she left, it was like that was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. My family gone, Rena's gone. You know, many of our friends in the wrestling industry that I knew very well had died. And I remember the depression was overwhelming. I think that's the blessing I have now is really understanding what people feel and go through when they're that depressed. They feel like there's no hope. And it wasn't long after that she was gone. I remember walking to that big house we had together on 5 acres. And I grabbed my handgun. I walked into I had this big walk-in shower. It was beautiful. And I remember putting my back against the wall and spreading my legs. And the idea was I put the gun to my temple, and I would slide down the wall. And then when my butt hit the ground, I would pull the trigger, almost like a wrestling bump, you know? And as I put the gun to my temple, I remember just overwhelming, just started sweating and panting and just this terror would come over me, but I just wanted to get it over with. And all of a sudden my life flashes before me. It felt like I could feel my heartbeat. And it's like seeing my brother, my sister, my mother, my father, all the things in life that were meant something, you know, and not money, not fame, nothing, but it was all the relationships that were gone. And then I started to slide down the wall, and I remember I'm going to pull the trigger when my butt hits the ground, and this vision of hell comes into my mind, like hearing an old pastor speak about hell, the fire, and it was like I seen all these people in this being tormented in this lake of fire, and it was so real to me. It was like, oh my gosh, could I possibly go there? And knowing that's not where I want to spend my eternity. And I remember just pointing the gun away, falling to my knees and begging Christ for forgiveness, begging God for all the stupid things I did over my life and hurting people, but having no animosity or anger or unforgiveness towards other people, like wanting to forgive everybody. But again, you need to forgive yourself. And I didn't know what I would do. I didn't know how I was going to continue my life as far as what occupation I was going to do. And I remember just hitting my knees. And I often tell people the tallest I've ever stood was that day I got down on my knees. You know, I need a counselor. He's a wonderful counselor. I needed peace in my heart. He's the Prince of Peace. I needed a friend. There's no better friend than Jesus. He took me from the death list to the book of life. And my whole life has been changed since that day, Vince. And I've never looked back. And now, gosh, going on 12 years later, 13 years, 2015 coming, serving him and living an incredible life. And now sharing that story with no fear or no animosity, but knowing that there's other people that are depressed, that go through this, that maybe are on the verge of hurting themselves, especially at this time of year, Vince, is a time when we see many people take their lives. Christmas is a beautiful time, but it's also a very sad time for people. And in that time of my life, it was a very, very sad day for me. But it was a couple months later was when I was ready to end it all. And I thank God every day that I never made that decision. And then He gave me this opportunity to do it all over again and serve Him in a way where I wouldn't, I'm not tempted to do those foolish things that I did back then because the love of money is not in me. I have no desire to. Oh my gosh, when I get money now, it's to bless other people. I'm blessed to be a blessing. So anytime that we get funding for money, we go to a school, we travel, we fly our team over here and over there, and it's just been an incredible, incredible journey, all from getting on my knees and asking Christ for forgiveness and another chance.
Mark, I have to say, Mark, it's called the Champions of Choice. Is that correct?
It's actually champion of choices,
Of
choices
choices.
being plural, and that's there's also the championchoices.com website, and thinkpoz.org is our other website that you can see all the schools and all the things we got coming up.
Mark, you know what I always say? This is what I always say. And I'm going to tell you why I'm going to say this. You sent me a link to the site, and I went to the link, and I saw you speak. And like I knew, bro. Listen, I'm a Christian guy. I've sat through many sermons. I've gone through many churches. I've watched many preachers on television and the internet. I've seen a lot. When I watch you speak, I knew immediately this is what Mark is supposed to be doing. This is what he was created to be. There was no doubt in my mind when I saw it. And Mark, I always say, to me, this is what I always tell people, because Mark, listen, when you're a Christian and somebody's not, you have to be very, very careful of when you approach them and when you talk to them. And you've got to speak, I think, on terms that they understand. And this is what I tell people all the time, because this is what I learned. Okay, you always talk about, Mark, the meaning of life. What is the meaning of life? That's the age-old question. Everyone wants to know what the meaning of life is. And I always tell people, once I became saved, and it's been 10 years now, and bro, it hasn't been a picnic. It's been a rocky road. I've lost jobs. I've dealt with depression. I've run the whole gamut. Okay, but here's what I do understand, and this is what I try to tell people. I think the meaning of life, I believe, bro, wholeheartedly, that we are all individual, and God created each and every one of us for a purpose. And He gave
Amen.
each and every one of us gifts. And we're supposed to take those gifts, and we're supposed to bring them out in the world to see God's will through. It's all about what He wants. And that's why He created us. He created us because we all have a piece in the big picture of what it is that He wanted us to accomplish for His will and the will of His kingdom. So that's why we're all different. That's why every person on the planet is different. We all bring something to the table. And bro, what I think the meaning of life is, and the reason why we go through all these trials and tribulations throughout our life, Marc Mero is the perfect example. We just went through his entire life in 2 hours, and a lot of it wasn't pretty. But I think the whole trial and tribulation and the meaning of life is the search to find out what exactly it is that we are supposed to be doing for God's will. What did He create Vince Russo? What is Vince Russo's piece in this puzzle? And that's why, bro, I think life is the search of figuring out what that is and finding what that is. And then when you finally find it and you know that it's right, and now the Marc Mero piece is in place, now you've got the ultimate gift, and that ultimate gift is peace and happiness and joy. And money doesn't matter, and the things of the world doesn't matter. All that matters is now you are achieving exactly what it was that God created for you to do. And I think, like I said, bro, seeing you in the wrestling world and following your career for the last 20 years and seeing you speak, I saw that and I'm like, well, you know what? It took him a long time to figure it out, but by God, he found it out, right?
Thanks, Vince. I just often say, now that I speak all over the country, I only wish God would have gave me a little bit better speaking ability when I was in the wrestling industry. Maybe I would have gotten over.
Well, he saved the best part for the end.
You know what? If I'm so blessed in my life now, and Vince, when I tell you, I couldn't be happier doing what I love doing when I travel all over the place now to speak at schools and churches and corporations. And God does have a purpose for every one of us. He really does. He created us in His image, and there's a purpose for your life. And what I would say to someone is, ask God. So many times we just are waiting and looking, but we really need to ask Him. He wants to answer your prayer. He wants to give you your heart's desire as long as it lines up with His will in your life. But start searching and start asking. Knock and the doors will be open. And that's exactly what I did. When I first was going to end my life, I remember just saying to Him, "What am I going to do? What can I do? I don't even know what job am I going to do? An old beat up, former boxer wrestler guy. What am I going to do?" And first thing I did was I become a personal trainer because that was a joy helping other people. And it's like servant leadership. When you help people, there's such a joy in helping people. And that's why, the biblical servant leadership is the more you give, the more you get back. And God has just overwhelmed me with, oh my gosh, Vince, I must get hundreds of letters. I mean, sometimes 1,000 letters in a week from students that claim that changed their life, or kids that were suicidal, or parents that are going through brokenness, that their marriage was saved because of the presentation. Diamond Dallas Page he was at one of my presentations recently, and he had his whole film crew come out and film my presentation. They just sent me over a link from YouTube of a clip from my presentation, and even watching it back, I realize how much God is using this story to help other people. He takes us from tragedy to triumph, from defeat to victory, and just never, ever, ever give up.
Yeah, well, Mark, I want to tell you personally, and I'm so glad I have this opportunity, that, bro, you're an inspiration to me. You've always been an inspiration to me. I know you're an inspiration to everybody listening, and the thousands and thousands of kids, that you speak to on a yearly basis. You are making a difference, and again, Mark, I just want to tell you, it's been a privilege and an honor for me to know you and be your friend for all these years.
Thank you so much, Vince. And I'm really looking forward to. I have a feeling we're not done yet. We're going to do something really cool together for the glory of God. Something so different than we did before. But I really believe God's going to use us together to do something really big. And I hope we get to announce that within a year that something big is going to happen. And I want to say it here first, where we could go back and go, remember we talked about that. But I really believe that there is something that we came back into each other's life for a reason. This isn't a coincidence. I don't really believe in coincidence. Coincidence is basically when God shows up and chooses to remain anonymous. That's a coincidence, okay? So we'll look at this opportunity as God remaining anonymous.
Mark, you know what I just wanted to say in closing here, because it's so funny. You talk about He put us together for a reason, and this, that. Mark, I promise you, I just wrote a blog yesterday on my website about people that lift you up and people that bring you down, and what type of people you need to have in your life. Then, today going into the interview, I'm trying to get every piece of Marc Mero information, and I hear the elevator theory. Can you please, just share that with the people? Bro, I just said this yesterday, and then I saw you, but I didn't say it as eloquently as you did.
Yeah, Vince, in 1 Corinthians 15:33, it says, "Don't be misled. Bad company corrupts good character." And in other words, what God is saying all the way back then, that we become who we surround ourselves with. And you got to think about your coworkers, your classmates, people that you're around. Who do you surround yourself with? Your friends, they're like elevators. They either take you up or they're going to take you down. You show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Surround yourself with positive people and watch how you become who we surround ourselves with.
And Mark, that is a terrific note to end it on. I want people to leave with that and remember that. Mark, I am going to be in touch. We are going to continue to talk. I would love the opportunity to be a part of your world and, serve Christ, his will, his way. And, again, from everybody here on Pyro and Ballyhoo, I thank you so much for being a part.
Thank you so much, Vince. I had a great time. God bless you.
God bless you, Mark. Thank you.